Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. We're going to cover the long-range forecast up front in this video, and we're going to start off here by looking at soil moisture. The first map is looking at the top 4 inches or 10 centimeters of soil moisture in terms of percentile, and we see that much of the upper Midwest, the northern plains extending back to the Great Lakes, and even this pocket here of the eastern Corn Belt is still quite dry in the topsoil. Now there is a low that recently moved through here that's going to help the moisture values out here over in the eastern Corn Belt toward Pennsylvania and also here at the Appalachian Mountains. But what I want to do is I want to show you before that, let's go a little deeper. This is now down to 16 inches or 40 centimeters. So we're looking now for where the soil moisture profile has problems deeper down into the ground. Now we don't expect change in the west. It's the wrong season for that. But this is an area that I'm very concerned about, because going down one more step, this is now down to 100 centimeters or about 40 inches. And these would be the regions in through here that, should we not return routine moisture, well, what's happened is we've missed out on multiple seasons through which we could have recharged the soil. And what I think is important about this is that even though in the last week we have seen great rains that have moved over here, for example, to the Carolinas, desperately needed rains, and the cutoff low that put down all of that moisture, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, is now moving through parts of the Mid-South and up here through the Ohio River Valley. But notice to the north, there were some great storms over the last few days here on the weekend that came through North Dakota. But the big problem is that we need more of this, just routine storms to go through this area. Because one of the bigger issues we've been dealing with has been this. Over the last 30 days, if we just kind of highlight this area right in through here, what you notice is that over the last 30 days, this area, especially centered on the Dakotas, has seen average daily wind speeds being 5 to 10 miles an hour faster than normal. Now, just understand something. That doesn't mean every day, but when it gets windy, it's been really windy. That's cranked up evapotranspiration rates, evaporation rates, and given the heat we've seen lately, it really just robbed us of the moisture that these storms have returned. And I want you to remember these next two maps. These might be the most important of the video. This was what the volumetric soil moisture looked like a year ago. Now just remember, to be saturated means that the volumetric soil moisture value is 50%. That's the color bar over there on the right. But this is what things look like a year ago. Now what I want to stress to you is that this is how they look after this next week. And the issue here is that while this area has a lot of moisture in the soil, much of it just recently getting recharged, you notice here in the western Corn Belt, the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and then of course out west, we have major deficits, and it's compared to a year ago. So as we go into this forecast, remember that there are places that are already dry deep down, and these are the places I'm going to be concerned about for flash drought development. There's another way to look at it, and this is the current drought monitor released last week. What I want to do is slide this bar over and show you what it looked like a year ago. Now remember, we did have flash drought in this area that showed up in July and August, September, actually through harvest. But when you just take it back to where we currently are in June, to where we were a year ago in June, it's a much different scenario. And my main point here is to tell you that the drought risk for this year, let's just go back here, is considerably higher. Now what I'd like to do is talk to you about the new long-range data that just came out. And we're going to look first at ocean temperatures. We still have the negative phase of the Pacific meridional mode. It's about 3 standard deviations below normal, and these cooler ocean temperatures will likely be here for a while, at least through the beginning of summer, if not longer. With the warm water to the north and the behavior in the North Atlantic, this is one of the primary drivers for the new long-range forecast, and this is what it looks like. June, July, and August, this is the forecast from the European seasonal model, and it is showing drought risk primarily to the west of the Mississippi River. It's very wet down south. Now let's step back and look at something here. While this would be consistent with those cooler waters off the west coast, the model at this point is not exhibiting high levels of skill in this prediction. And what I mean by that is this precipitation pattern is almost what we expect it to look like for the next 15 days. And it seems as though the model is just carrying that moving forward. It's the same thing with the seasonal temperature forecast. If you look out there, we're cooler south and much warmer to the north, and that's almost identical to what I'm about to show you coming up through the next 15 days. Takeaway point here, the models are not predicting a pattern break. There will be one at some point, but they are not seeing it early, and we need to remember that when examining the skill. But if you take them at face value, They keep the northern half of the United States with well above average temperatures. And they keep the risk of drought development combined with those soil moisture anomalies, let's go to the 3 months combined. There we go, June, July, August. They keep this area at risk of drought development. That's a main story. There's another piece to this. I would like to show you pressure patterns, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this out to a North American view. I will be watching the position of this subtropical high very closely, because should it stay off the coast, we'll continue to open up the Gulf of Mexico and keep a lot of storms in certain parts of North America. Will it extend to the northern plains? That's going to be the big question. Now, right now, this is where our thunderstorms are located. One of my favorite sites, blitzertongue.org. And I'm most concerned about this complex of storms right in through here. Scattered storms all throughout the eastern part of the United States. But this complex of storms here, this mesoscale convective system, seems to have the ability to produce what may be a mesoscale convective vortex that goes through the mid-Mississippi River Valley and eventually into Illinois. Let me show you what I'm talking about and get ready for the model battle next. Our models at this point are not in agreement over the next week. I waited until after the 12Z runs came in to share this with you, but what you've got right now is the European model looks like this. Very dry in this area. Drier in the Dakotas. Stormy and wet here in the Canadian Prairie. But that little MCS is forecast to come around right here, curl up into a low, and dump a bunch of rain in through that area. And still we keep the Gulf of Mexico open and a lot of storms in this area combined with the cutoff low that's just slowly moving out in this direction. So this is the European model forecast, 12Z today, for the next 7 days. Same forecast time period, GFS. European, GFS. Just different and for interesting reasons. Probably the most important reason that I've been focusing on, I should just say, is the moisture returning to the northern plains. That's just an area I've watched a lot with the drought situation here. And I want to show you what they're struggling with. It's right here. There is a wave, let's draw that again, right there, okay? And that wave is forecast to get pulled around this trough here and eventually eject into the northern plains. The GFS is more aggressive with pulling the Gulf moisture and producing bigger rains here. The European is not. This pattern you see, though, we're going to be in for a while. What am I talking about? A trough off the west coast and a building ridge right here. And that's what we're going to keep an eye out on. So tonight, we're going to watch for severe storms in this area. And we're also going to see what comes out here out of this part of the Red River Valley and eventually move in this direction, because by tomorrow, our severe thunderstorm threat, well, that cutoff low is finally going to move its way here and increase the risk in this area on Tuesday. And the feature that was coming through Texas and Louisiana and Arkansas is going to move right into this area, possibly increasing the thunderstorm threat there. I can show it to you in the high-res NAM model. This is valid this evening at 6 p.m. on Monday. And you can see the scattered storms throughout the east. But this complex of storms here that's going to move through and over Memphis and then eventually here toward Paducah, well, it may show up tomorrow midday as a thunderstorm complex that goes, well, maybe near my house right here in Champaign, Illinois. Meanwhile, let's go back. Tonight, watch the storms right in through this area. Let's go back a little farther here. Right in through this area tonight, possibly blowing up, going through the Red River Valley of the North, bringing in some heavy rainfall. Then the next system will be on Tuesday. Tuesday night, let's watch this area very carefully for the risk of those severe storms. And over to the east, more heavy rainfall potential here in the Ohio River Valley up toward, this part of Indiana and Ohio. So we got a lot to be paying attention to. Let's get back to that model battle, though. You're going to see flashes of green all in this area. That's because the flow coming out of the Gulf on the heat and humidity is going to pop storms. But if we walk our way through Tuesday into Wednesday, that's where the first system, I'm kind of going back and forth here on Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. That's where the models really diverge in what they're doing with this low. You see the ECMWF is putting more of that precipitation farther to the north. I believe it is because of the interaction with this system farther to the south here coming over Illinois. That's part of the story. But that low doesn't want to produce a lot of precipitation here. We still have the scattered storms in this eastern part of the United States. The second wave comes out on Thursday night into Friday, and here it is, possibly increasing chances of storms there again. But as that moves through, that would be it. Big ridge builds in behind it and shuts it all down. Now, the GFS, watch this, getting out to Tuesday morning, afternoon, and evening, and watch the overnight. Right there, this is what it does with that low. Pulls in a lot more moisture, much heavier precip, that then moves through the Dakotas and on out toward Manitoba and Quebec. And then the second system that comes in here on Thursday, it brings in even more rainfall. Meanwhile, we just continue to see the scattered storms over here. So we added all that up earlier, but let me show you what it looks like. That's the Europeans look over the next 7 days, and this is the GFS. Now, I'll make a comment here. The European model is right now outperforming the GFS with a skill score difference of 5%. That doesn't mean everywhere, but that's the overall pattern matching skill score. We have a lot to be watching in the forecast over the next 7 days because, again, here's the European and here's the GFS. Let's finish this up by talking week 2 and temperatures, and we'll be done. Week 2, by day 10, the forecast in both the models attempts to do something like this. That second trough that comes through eventually dives into the eastern part of the United States, while a ridge builds to the west. And what you end up getting out of that from the European model is a drier forecast here with much more storms. Let's try that again. With a lot more thunderstorm activity here in parts of the Mid-South, but along the Gulf Coast over to the East Coast. And as you can imagine, the GFS has nothing to do with that. It's got more of the storms down here, and we're drier in this area. So the model confusion continues out into week 2. Part of it is because there is something right now in developing down here in the Caribbean. It's got a 20% chance of forming, but some of the models are attempting to take what's left of that moisture and put it into the Gulf. You can actually see that here. And you can also see it there. But let's talk temperatures, because over the last 7 days, we were quite cool here, while heat last week built along the west and then spread through the northern plains and was setting records into the northeast. This is your last 7 days. Where we're going with this? Well, here's Tuesday's highs. As we work our way through the week, getting out to Wednesday and Thursday, it's a hot one here. Cooler weather on the west coast. And as we then go out into Friday, that's when we get a brief cool down, but towards Saturday and Sunday, the ridge develops and it gets hot, and it sticks around. This is going all the way out there to day 10. And the models are keeping this whole area in through here with above average temperatures. Now, the long-range European keeps the high in place, pumps the moisture around, keeps this dry. Can you see how it's just persisting in the longer-term pattern? And I bet you can imagine what the temperature pattern looks like, but I'll show it to you anyway. There it is. So we've got a lot to be keeping an eye on, and I'll watch it for you and report back on Thursday. I appreciate your attention. Thanks.